we're going to see a lot more sellers come August because of some rule changes, not offering buyer's agent commissions. And I know a lot of buyers, in the past, it didn't really matter because sellers were paying buyer's agents. Buyers don't have a great, in a lot of cases, I should say, don't have a great understanding of really what goes on behind the scenes and what their agent is doing for them. And so I highly recommend you going back and listening to our last episode as we started this 3-part series. But the temptation is I'm going to go it alone. I'm going to try to buy a house unrepresented. I know what I'm doing. I got Zillow. I got ChatGPT. I got Alexa. I got all these things, and I got it all figured out. I got my uncle
that rents.
All right. So assuming you got through the process of getting an offer accepted, and good on you that you somehow navigated that process and won over competing offers and negotiated with a seller. So good on you. So what now happens? And a lot of things that people don't understand, Justin, is they don't understand the timelines. The contract as it sits states a 10-day inspection period. Now, a lot of people don't know when day one is of the 10-day inspection period. The moment that you have executed buyer-seller, have executed a purchase agreement, that's actually day 0. Mm-hmm. Day 1 doesn't begin till the next day. So you go out and and you get this inspection, you get the inspection report, then what do? How do you negotiate? How do you know what to negotiate? If you're going to send over a 3-page response, we call it a BINSR, buyer inspection and response form, with 400 requests, I'm telling you, the seller's just going to say, bye-bye.
Yeah. And I wonder how many consumers are actually going to get an inspection done. I think that's going to be one of the biggest.
Well, I will say this, if you're cheap from the get-go and not wanting to hire an agent and not wanting representation, chances are you might be cheap through the entire home purchasing process.
Now, you got to keep in mind that a home inspector their job is to find problems. No matter how small or how big those problems are, their job is to lay it all out for you. So, yeah, I mean, I could see people taking the inspection report and basically just putting everything in there and turning it over. I guarantee I've had multiple clients that are those types of clients that would put them all down there and want them all fixed. I can also see clients that will just glaze over it and say, oh, it's good. And there could be some major issues there that they're not really paying attention to. Again, this is I feel like I keep saying it. This is another important piece. They're all important.
I've got a list of 27 questions here. And if you want a copy of this list, all you got to do is text the word agent to 623-AZ-RECON. That's agent to 623-AZ-RECON. Spent a lot of time, Justin, putting together with our entire team this list. They're all great questions.
They're great questions. Yeah, I mean, and then the fact when you're turning it in, what if they come back to you and say, oh, I'll give you $1,000. Chances are good if they're represented or they're
represented.
Represented.
How about that today? I'm the one with the big words.
Yeah, you're doing good.
My pronunciation today. Yeah.
We can't even tell that you're reading.
I'm a strong reader.
They're probably going to try to take advantage of you.
Absolutely. And here's my fear. You're an unrepresented buyer. Seller has hired an agent who only represents the seller. Is it the listing agent's responsibility to make sure that you get an inspection?
Absolutely not.
And understand that there is a time period. And if you know that time period, do you have the proper form to request repairs? When your inspection comes in and there's things to note, do you know your 3 options? And then if you know all of that stuff and you request repairs, then do you know the timeline that the seller has? And then if the seller doesn't respond, what your timeline is. If you miss those timelines and then you want out,
You're done.
you might forfeit your earnest money.
Yeah. Yeah. These are, it's going to, I feel like it's going to be heartbreaking on a lot of cases because these listing agents, they are hired to represent the sellers, and their job is to get them the most net proceeds they can from that home, and make sure that they're doing everything correctly, legally, and they're gonna abide by it. They're gonna make sure that they do it. They're going to make sure that they're on point all the time.
So let's say you get that far, all right, and you get the inspection, you submit repairs, seller agrees to fix said repairs. How are you going to determine if those repairs were done properly? He says that, hey, you know what? The differential split. Dude, I threw out that word too without problems. Yeah. Differential split and the AC's off. And you request the seller to repair it, or the water heater, or something with the gas line, or something with the roof. You know, how are you going to ensure that those repairs were done? And if they were done, how are you going to ensure that they were done properly? Oftentimes for us, when it's those big ticket items, especially roof, I'm telling you right now, if I'm helping you buy a home, I'm not climbing on the roof, okay? I don't do ladders very well. I'm at that point in life
You don't walk
where
very well.
I am one fall away from death, okay? I recognize that. I don't know anything about, well, I'm not going to say I don't know anything about AC units, but I don't have a thermometer. I don't know about, there's a lot of things I don't know about. I just know how to negotiate, right? So oftentimes we'll get the inspection done, and then for some of those big ticket items, we'll schedule a re-inspection with the home inspector to go back out there a couple days prior to close of escrow to make sure that stuff was done properly. And then of those items, what items can the seller do? How much money can the seller, in repairs, can the seller do without a licensed general contractor? What items on that list must you have a licensed general contractor? Because when you don't have representation, you don't make sure those things get done. You remember the movie, was it Money Pit?
Money Pit? Yeah.
Money Pit with Tom Hanks?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah.
This is what you're walking into. Because you're like, I'm going to save some money. I'm not going to hire an agent. Next thing you know, you didn't verify that the AC unit was fixed properly. Then are you going to go after the seller? Do you know how to sue them? And next thing you know, you're popping in $8,000 just to replace the AC unit and the water heater and so forth. You'd have been better off on hiring an agent.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So I love this one because this one really falls into your area as our lender. Okay. This is to me, one of the big ones on this list of 27 questions. And we want to get you this list of 27 questions unrepresented buyers should ask themselves. All you got to do is text the word agent to 623-AZ-RECON. That's agent to 623-AZ-RECON. In most cases, I'm not going to say, in a lot of cases, the appraisal gets done after the home inspections. So you've put in earnest money, you've paid for and hired an inspector, you've negotiated all these repairs, so now you're out some money. You order the appraisal, which you're going to be out some money. What do you do, Mr. and Mrs. Unrepresented Buyer, if the appraisal comes in low? You're under contract to buy a home for $450,000, and that appraisal comes in at $425,000. It's what we do.
Yeah.
It's what we know and what we're good at. But what do you do?
Here's the thing. This is a question I have for you. Have we ever had a low appraisal on a property?
Yeah.
We
As
have?
a team, yeah. We've had appraisal come in a little lower.
I can't remember it. Typically,
no,
your guys'
because-
appraisals come in higher.
Yeah,
the
but
value.
okay.
Obviously,
let's
the
take a look
team-
at it. Different years and different times during COVID
Sure.
and things like that. Things were crazy. Sometimes our strategy is, if we know that if I know that that listing agent isn't very well experienced, and I have a little bit of history of the seller might be a little bit desperate, we may purposely go in high if we have to beat out other offers,
Sure.
knowing, and that's what we have done, knowing that the appraisal is probably not going to come in, but we sit down with our buyers and say, okay, this is our strategy. This is how we are going to handle a low appraisal because we've done so much due diligence on the other side. I'm like a private investigator,
Yeah.
and we know what's going on the other side. But it doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, we've negotiated, under appraised value. But sometimes, it's part of our strategy. It just depends on the house in the particular situation.
So I'll tell you all what we look at. So when we get a low value on the appraisal, even though the purchase contract says, let's just say 400,000 and it comes in at 390, we are going to require your down payment to come off of 390, not the 400. So you're going to come in with that down payment off of the 390 plus your closing costs. Then you're going to have to come up with a difference if you're going to go through
with
your transaction.
But that's my point, Justin, is a lot of unrepresented buyers don't know what their options are.
100%. 100%. And that's, I mean, you can try to go back and talk to the listing agent. I feel like the listing agent's probably going to play a little bit of a bully here, again, because their job is to bring in as much proceeds as they can. But they may have multiple offers, and they may make you think that they have a backup offer that's willing to pay over that appraised value. You hear it all the time.
Because I think a lot of unrepresented buyers are going to assume, because who knows what that listing agent's going to say or what that for sale by owner is going to say. If that appraisal value comes in low, let's say it comes in $15,000 under the purchase contract, a lot of buyers are going to think, well, then I've got to cough up an extra 15 grand. You don't. You have options at that point. You actually can walk from the contract and get your money back, or you could cough up the extra 15 grand, or maybe we negotiate and buyer sacrifices and gives up a little and the seller sacrifices and gives up a little.
And how many days do you have to put that together?
Exactly.
And how long do they have to respond to you? There's all that goes along with that as well. And I feel like that's another very important piece to this thing. Incredible.
All right. I think another big one, they're all big ones, is the contract. Little education time for our listeners. A lot of this is stemmed from the National Association of Realtors, and I'm not going to get into the history and why we're here. But not every licensed real estate agent is a realtor, is a member of the National Association of Realtors. Only members of the National Association of Realtors can call themselves realtors. It's just what it is. I don't have to be a member of the National Association of Realtors to do it. But if I want to use, and that puts me into this group called AAR, the Arizona Association of Realtors, that is where we get all of our contracts, all of our forms, and our purchase contract. This is the purchase contract you want to use, okay? Otherwise, you're really putting yourself at risk. And so if you don't know, and the other agent, or it's a for sale by owner, and that contract is not a AAR approved purchase contract, I can't even tell you the contracts that are out there.
Oh.
LegalZoom is not your solution for this. And if you are not using an AAR contract, approved contract, you are really jeopardizing. And if it's a for sale by owner or the other agent is not a realtor and they're coming up with their own contract, I don't even want to get involved. I've heard some of the most horrific stories, and that's part of what you get with using a realtor.
I've seen some amazing contracts, Mike.
And I want to say they're only available to members of the National Association of Realtors.
Yeah. I've seen some amazing contracts. I've seen handwritten contracts come in. I've seen I've seen pencil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those typically happen to be family members most of the time when those come in. But there's still there's not a lot covered in there. It's basically just purchasing this house, and as a consumer, that's as a typical consumer without any experience of contracts, that may be what you think is the best thing. There's no timelines in it. There's no inspection periods. There's no appraisal clauses. So if the appraisal comes in low in a lot of those cases, they're not obligated to lower the price because you're in a contract.
And then assuming the seller does have a licensed realtor, a licensed member of the National Association of Realtors, and you don't have an agent, and you actually do get presented an approved AAR purchase contract, do you understand the terms and the conditions set forth in that contract and to protect your investment? Do you understand those timelines? Do you understand what's in there? Do you understand the pitfalls? Do you understand how to get out of the contract if you need to, and when you can get out of the contract and when you can't get out of the contract? I mean, and then that leads to the last one. If you get presented any type of purchase contract, and this is the thing. Oh, Mike, Justin, I don't want to potentially pay for a buyer's agent, so I'm going to do it myself. I've Googled this thing. ChatGPT has given me all my instructions and so forth, and I want to save some money. Do you really save money, especially when things go wrong? Do you know not only a real estate attorney, but a really good real estate attorney, because that is where you are going. That's who your next call is.
And how much is that going to cost you?
And that's the thing. And then it goes back to cheap. If you're cheap, you're going to go with the one that's not going to cost you the most.
They're probably not good.
I'm not going to say that they're not, but I know if I'm getting convicted of a crime and I'm going to spend the next 20 years in prison, I'm going all out.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to hire the best attorney that I can.
I'm going to Johnny Cochran.
I'm too pretty for prison. Yeah. I'm just too darn pretty for prison. But yeah, you're going to need to have a skilled real estate attorney.
Have to. There may be a few cases where people get these things through, no big deal, and have really no issues. But I would be willing to bet that more often than not, there's going to be issues just between the two episodes that we've done. We haven't even got to the last episode.
No, I can't wait. That's going to be Friday.
There's going to be a lot of money left on the table one way or another.
And lastly on this, if a transaction goes off without a hitch, you have no problem scheduling all the showings. You've got no problems getting your contract accepted. The home inspection comes back perfect. There is nothing wrong with this home. And you get to the closing table and you get your loan funded and everything signed. You could look back and go, yeah, I wouldn't need representation. Mike, I wouldn't need you. I wouldn't need your team. But what happens when there's the hiccup? That's why you hire representation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if you'd like to have a conversation about the home buying process and you'd like to get a hold of this list of the 27 questions unrepresented buyers should ask themselves, we'd love to have that conversation with you. All you got to do is text the word agent to 623-AZ-RECON. That's agent to 623-AZ-RECON.